Hello, Crawley fans, and welcome back to On the Ground with myself and Preston Johnson. This is episode 3. Firstly, Preston, how are we doing? What's been going on in your world recently?
My world, my country that I'm from.
Well, both, yeah. Some big things to talk about.
I feel like we're supposed to do these a lot more than we have, but I did have to go back to America for a little family emergency. Then I stayed and trick-or-treated because it was Halloween. And then there was an election, which I don't know if you have questions about that, if that's what you were getting at.
Well, I don't know if we can sort of talk about your sort of opinions on it, but it's always it seems like for us, it's like a one-day event. For you guys, like even us over here, like we're watching and talking about it for days, and obviously it's still going on now, so It must be pretty weird being over here. Obviously, I think did you land like the day after that it got announced that it was Trump? So like it must be pretty strange, but sort of being over here and it still being such a big event.
It is strange. I think for me, I just don't care that much because I typically hate politics and I think they generally bring out the worst in people. And so that's my general thought. As far as this particular election, it's kind of embarrassing that the majority of our country think that's the best option to run the country, but that's the state of the world we're in. And maybe it'll be better one day, but for the next 4 years, we just gotta, survive. So that's why I don't really care too much. And being over here has actually been nice because I don't have to hear about it as much, at least. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, as you say, it's been a little while since we've done the last one of these, and there's been change in America, and there's also been change at Crawley's because since the last episode, we've obviously changed manager. So it's been a pretty sort of turbulent time, isn't it? Sort of lots of change, lots of games for Rob to get his teeth stuck into. But firstly, I suppose any sort of, I know it's been a while now, but any sort of final messages to sort of Scott and his team that sort of left as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the process of sort of how one manager leaves and another one comes in.
Sure. I mean, to Scott and them, I think I put something in a statement out when it happened, but grateful for all the good times and the, standard that they set and the new culture that they brought to Crawley Town Football Club, which was necessary at the time. And we were able to accomplish a promotion, which I don't think anyone really anticipated going into the season. So we'll never forget it. Scott and those guys won't either. And grateful for all the time that they were here.
Yeah. And talk us through a little bit about the process, because obviously I imagine not necessarily the ins and outs, because obviously a lot of it has to remain private, but I imagine you sort of get the news and then how do you sort of deal with it? Is it straight away sort of looking at the contingency plan of like, right, who's going to take control in the interim? Obviously we had Gladders doing, a job here. Or is it just full focus on sort of getting somebody in straight away? Because it must be quite a stressful process.
It is. We've done it a few times, unfortunately. This one was a little bit different. One of the main reasons I decided to come back this season and really, the way I put it, like give us and give myself like the best fight, the best chance of like surviving this first season in League One. I anticipated and we knew there was going to be a lot of player turnover because of the contracts and the way those were sorted over the summer. But we were also pretty, what's the best way to put it? This was inevitable. I had offered Scott a new contract a few times over the summer to no avail, and we kind of saw this coming. And so in some ways, the turnover with the players would be hard enough stepping up a league, but we also saw a new management change probably coming too. And I was just like, all right, like if we're going to go down, I can't help myself if I just let someone else deal with this. I got to give it my best shot. And so that's one of the reasons I was here, to try to help find a solution, someone that can, and this is where Rob comes in, play a similar style, has the same beliefs as far as the way we want to play football, that with the personnel we've recruited over the last few seasons molds well, and gels. And so the process was unique in that I think, as things were progressing, we knew, all right, this is likely going to happen. We were able to kind of already zero in on options that fit that mold and fit what we had built here the last year and a half to 2 seasons with Scott Lindsay and the style of football and with the players that we have. And so it was more straightforward for us than I think that first year, where it felt like we were just scrambling because of sudden changes, whether it was the John Yems allegations and everything that happened with that, and the league and the FA, and then the Matthew Etherington one, for example, like just quit on a dime on a day, like right after Christmas, and it was sudden. So this was a lot less stressful, to be honest. It's always stressful, but it was, I think, more organized and process driven and well thought out, I think. And we're happy with Rob and his staff. And, they've been dealt a pretty tough hand, not only League One with this club, but like quite a few injuries. We're not very fit. You look back on who you would have maybe anticipated the starting 11 to be, or for example, Dion, the captain of last year's promotion squad hasn't even played a minute yet. And then you have Junior and Josh and JoJo and Jay, and there's others. Just they're fighting their best, and I think we're going to get to a point come December and then into January where we can actually make changes in a transfer window that we're going to be pretty excited. And I think starting to prove some people, or prove to some people that we're here to stay. We're not going to go down. Yeah,
and I want to talk about sort of how Rob came about to sort of become our manager, because a lot of fans had actually suggested Rob as well. Obviously online, it was, to a lot of people, it did make sense because, as you've already touched on, similar playing styles. Gateshead played some really good stuff, and obviously, won at Wembley as well last season. Or the season before. But how much of an ideal candidate was Rob to you, and at sort of what point did you start sort of keeping tabs? Because as we've spoke to him as well, he's got quite an interesting story. Obviously, his idea wasn't to become a manager straight away. Obviously, went in as technical director at Gateshead first, and then ended up sort of just ipso facto becoming the manager. So, at what point did you start sort of keeping tabs and thinking that this could be the right fit?
That's a good question. I think you always have to be preparing in the background. And so he's probably one of a handful of names that is like, look, if especially after we got promoted, like initially in May, it was like, all right, well, someone's going to come for Scott this summer, or right at the start of the season when managers start getting sacked everywhere. Like, it's probably inevitable. We tried to keep Scott the best we could. He needed to move on for his own career aspirations and for his family. I think it was around, that summertime, thinking through and trying to be prepared for that moment where Rob became a real candidate for us. I think it wasn't Wembley last year because they had this deal at Gateshead with their grounds and not being able to play there or something, where they actually got disqualified in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were in the playoffs, weren't they? And then were told they weren't allowed to compete because Gateshead Stadium wouldn't have been acceptable in the Football League, so they got chucked out, which is crazy.
It's unfortunate for them, but it was, he had accomplished quite a bit even after Mike had gone to MK, who was the previous manager he stepped in for. And then I think Stephen Warren was like leading their team in goals and like XG created and a bunch of metrics. He had gone on to MK as well. And then their numbers and metrics got better, which we thought was intriguing too. And Rob's approach, and, we had talked to him as the technical director because there were a few players that we had spotted. Adam Campbell played at Gateshead the year prior. So we had been in contact and discussed things with Rob prior to even, the summer too. And just always appreciated his mind and the way he looked at the game.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the many reasons why it was sort of a perfect fit. And the Crawley fans, were very excited when, appointed, because over the last year and a half or however long Scott was here, it was very clear that we had built up to an identity. And I suppose for players, it must be very hard to sort of go from a very sort of fast change. But even after Rob's first couple of sessions, you could see that there wasn't going to be too much change. It was going to be sort of, some adaptations. Obviously, every manager's got their own sort of style, but it must have been easy for you to know that it wasn't going to be too much of a change, so we wouldn't be sort of up and down like a yo-yo for a while.
Yeah, I think when that first training session I went to that Ben Gladwin had led, that Scott was gone, I think it was Pan. I think it was Kamara came up to me and he's like, "Is the new manager, is he going to play football?" I was like, yeah, don't worry. Like, we're going to play football. So and that's like important to the players, especially the ones we've recruited the last few seasons. Is, they're not going to necessarily be the biggest and most physical and just go up and head everything and play long all the time. Although in League One, we've kind of had to adapt a little bit more to ourselves and, maybe not having 65+% of the ball all the time and finding ways to optimize our abilities and our personnel. But yeah, so that was obviously a piece of it. And then the other piece, Gateshead, whether it was Mike, whether it was Rob, probably a combination of both of them and the players they recruited, but they recruited on a really small budget at Gateshead. I'm probably not allowed to even say the number, but I'm pretty sure I know the number. And like relative to National League clubs, it's very, very small, if not one of the smallest, which is a very similar position Crawley Town's in at League One. So that was another piece. It's like, look, he's done a good job on lesser money, on a smaller budget, finding an eye or having an eye for finding the talent that can play in his system, or Mike's, which was very similar, and then creating opportunities from there. And so that was kind of like for like two, even outside of the actual like tactics. It was like from a financial standpoint and recruiting standpoint, it's lined up with what we've been doing ourselves the last 2 seasons too.
Let's talk about the results. Obviously, he's had a couple of wins since he's come in. We have already spoken about the injuries. That was going to be one of my questions, actually, is he's not exactly been dealt an easy hand. You know, some would say key players of our side, he's probably not even had a real chance to see yet, because even in the first couple of games, you know, players like Armando, for example, like you're only getting a feel for what they can do. He's probably trying them out in certain positions, and before you know it, they're out for the next few months. So it's quite unfortunate. But what have you made of our sort of recent performances and sort of the way we've played since Rob's come in?
It's this is like the cliche answer I'm supposed to have because I'm whatever, you know. But it's inconsistent would be like the first word, but there are glimpses, right? Like you have a game, whether it be you know, Reading, or even, you know, the game that like everyone thinks we played terribly in was Shrewsbury, which is true after we went down a man. But we were good. Before that we actually won XG. We had played them by about like 50 to 60% of their XG. So like, and then you had a game like Northampton Town where we were pretty poor. Like it was bad. And then obviously Lincoln City was much better, I think. And so it's just like trying to get everyone where you see those glimpses more frequently. And that's going to happen when the players start getting more fit or used to playing with each other and get more time and minutes with Rob and the new staff. And it's just like a matter of, I truthfully we have this eye on the next 5 matches are against, I think, teams 12 through 16 on the table currently before Birmingham, which is a tough one for obvious reasons. It's like, can we get through these next 5 and scrape up some wins, some points where we feel like we're at a point mid-December as a bunch of our players are more fit, and we have that opportunity then to add in January where we're in a spot where everyone's excited and motivated and instead of feeling down because things haven't gone our way. And that's also what's key about having a manager and a coaching staff, that, you know, sport is just like a mental game too. It's the whole psychological side is really difficult, and especially when times are tough and there's a lot of change, which is again another reason why I wanted to make sure I was here more often for this season, both on the pitch but off and in the office, and trying to make things as good and as efficient as possible for you guys. So it's just a matter of Rob and the players staying true to the way they play and their belief in their abilities and talent, and why we recruited them. And, you know, I told them, I don't remember if you were there or not, that first training session when Gladwin had taken over, you know, and I went in and I'm not like a speech guy. Like I actually hate talking to people in public, which I think you probably know that already. And I didn't take more than maybe 45 seconds, but I just said, look, you know, what Scott and everyone that was on the squad last year did was fantastic. Like developed you guys. We brought you guys in though from like lower leagues, National League, 6th tier, backups at League 2, because the data, the numbers say you're good at football. Yeah. Like it wasn't like also just some magic trick where suddenly you were good. Like you guys are always fucking good footballers. Sorry for the language there, but like you guys are still good footballers. Like, let's do this. Like, I don't know if I hyped him up or not. I have no idea. The reaction was like some head nods though. And like the truth is, like at the end of the day, the players are the ones that earned it out there. There's a ton that goes into managing and the coaching staff and preparing and the data and this and that. But like the reason we've brought these players in is because we think they're good enough for the level. And, you know, we're going to continue on that path, and hopefully we get more fit and we can add to what we need in January and make a run. But I think that was important for the players to hear, because that's truthfully what we believe. And I guess I'll leave it at that. Go for it.
Yeah, fair enough. But since we've had the last podcast, we've practically had, I suppose, 2 new additions to the squad, despite it not being in a transfer window. Obviously, Benji's come in. You know, I think the last time we spoke, he still hadn't made an appearance for Crawley. So, Tanamu's in. And also Tyrese John Jules as well. Talk us through those 2. What have you made of sort of Benji's first few games? And also, how does the process of signing a player in, I suppose most people will know, but in terms of signing someone outside of the transfer window, was that always a plan that you were going to sign Tyrese, or was it someone that was just brought to your attention? Are you always looking outside of a transfer window for free agents as well?
Yeah, you always have to be looking in case something worthwhile pops up. And I think I addressed this on the last podcast or maybe it was the very first one, where our strategy in general needs to be a little different at League One. We need to take a few more gambles and risks on players maybe that haven't played as many minutes recently because they weren't as fit last year. And we need to bet on, Ricky and our team to keep them medically prepared throughout the season. Maybe it's recruiting from other countries internationally, which we've done with multiple players. So whether, Tanamu for one or Tyrese John Jules is another, for example. I think, I don't want to misspeak, so don't hold me to this 100%, but I think his contract with Arsenal broke off like the very last day of the window, like end of August, which if it wasn't, then they would have had to keep him under contract until like January. But or if they had broken it off in September, he would not have been able or been allowed to sign with anyone until January. But because they got it done before the window, he spent, some amount of time, a few seconds, minutes, hours, where he was a free agent, which allowed him to then continue to be a free agent through September, October. So I'm pretty sure that's how the actual ruling goes and the regulations there. And so he was available. And as we started to assess, our squad and where we were at, he was one that we had kept an eye on for a while. We had been in contact with the agent for a while. And, he was still available a few weeks later. We had already been considering it anyway. I think he was a piece that, his creativity as a 10 or even playing as a second striker or whatever it may be, is something that we need to get more opportunities created in the final third. And so he's one that we just saw for the first time for maybe 25 to 30 minutes at Wickham. I think he had 2 shots and also had a through ball to Will Swan, who kind of one-touched it and the defender got to the ball. Like, he's going to be pretty good. And so we need to get him to where he can be starting and playing 60 to 90 minutes, but that's in the works. That's another part of this like December to mid-December window where you're suddenly adding, a couple of the guys that have been injured, plus Tyrese John Jules, who's arguably one of our most impactful players. And then we have January. There's things to be positive about. And Tanamu's starting to get a little more run himself. I thought he actually played pretty well the other day, outside of his little throw ball mishap. We'll teach him that one. But he had a couple times where he was able to get back and with his speed, save a couple balls out of the box, one in the air, one on the ground. And then he had 2 forward passes later in the game, up one to Rolls, and then I think another one on the right side. It might have been to Will Swan, though, that ended up creating opportunities. And so, which part of Rob's job then is just assessing everyone as they train and play in these games to kind of form our top 18 or whatever you want to call it for league matches. But we're getting there.
I want to talk a little bit about the cups. I asked Rob this question on Tuesday. I don't think he really knew what he was allowed to say. He needed to be a bit careful. I want to ask you about the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, because I don't know if you know, but it causes quite a lot of controversy in the UK. Some people love it. Some people don't like it. It was clear the Wickham fans didn't really like it. I think there was maybe 400 or 500 people there,
if that.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw, I had to post on Instagram. I don't know if anyone actually had the sound on, but I was like, oh, it's a full house, and then I took a shot of it. It's literally empty. On the other side, we had some fans of ours there. The whole south or north maybe side was empty, and there was just some people to the sides of the director's box. But I was shocked how little people cared about that one. I was not expecting it to be that, especially for Wickham. I don't know, because when we were there before a month and a half ago, it was pretty full. It was fine. So
no, I just wanted to ask your opinion on it, because I think it's very difficult to say, because obviously we're never going to slag off a competition. It's one that the EFL provide us. It's one that we get good prize money for. If you go through and win, I think you raise about 30,000. Is it, if you win every group game? Is it around that number?
Total or per game?
No, total. So if you
I think that's closer to
it's around that. So it is good prize money, but for a lot of the teams like us this year, we're probably struggling more on the injury side. So it seems like a bit of an inconvenience. But how do you see it, and sort of not how important do you rank it, because that would be harsh on the competition, but what was your sort of feeling after we got knocked out on Tuesday night? Was it, okay, it's fine, we gave it a run, obviously we won a game, we got some points on the board, we would have got some money from that game, but might not be the worst thing in the world if we got less games? It's again, nothing derogatory to the competition, it's just, is it what we need right now? You could say the same for the FA Cup and the Carabao as well.
To be fair, I think Wickham's on top of the table, so for them, they're trying to win the league and go to the championship. They probably don't care too much about the competition right now. So I understand maybe why their fans weren't there. It's a Tuesday night as well. It's cold. Me personally, because I didn't grow up in it, I don't think I have as much of an attachment to even the FA Cup like you guys do, where it's like the tradition, it's everything. So for me, and the way I look at all of these, granted, the FA Cup, you get more money if you win than even that game by quite a bit, especially if we win our next one against Lincoln City. So there's financial differences between the cups. So I want to make that clear. But outside of that, for us, it's being given a chance to see our players, get eyes on them, get some data on them in opportunities to play that maybe otherwise wouldn't be playing as frequently. You know, one of my favorite stretches of the game, although we didn't create a goal, but seeing Tola and Swan together and Tyrese John Jules, and then Hepper Murphy came on too with some pace. Kamara had come on. It was actually more of our kind of creative, dynamic, athletic squad that had come in off of the bench, which was intentional because we couldn't play them a ton of minutes because we need them for our league game this upcoming Saturday. Like it was a Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday week. But that was really fun just to see a lot of those guys thrown on together. And it might have felt more random. It might have felt like we were going long more and just like getting second balls and countering, because that's kind of what happened. But we created quite a bit. And so, and by the way, the one rolls ball through the middle to Tola was definitely not offside. No. I've seen it 100 times since. In real time, it wasn't offside. Not sure why they called it, but that's a 1v0 with a defender behind Tola that probably leads to another high opportunity that we got, unlucky on. But so that was really exciting for me. And so in seeing Tanamu get to play a full 90, like those are things that are very useful and valuable to a coaching staff, to us from a recruiting aspect as we assess the data and everything else. So that's how I kind of look at all the cup games, truthfully.
That's fair enough.
Because for us, where we're at, we're not Wickham where we're going to be safe for sure because we're already top of the table. It's like every league game is like priority just because we're trying to make sure we stay in League One or at least give ourselves the best chance to. Yeah,
and that leads us on to the FA Cup, obviously. Always good to get through round one. We said when the draw was made, it's slightly more exciting when you're playing away to a non-league team because in the last few years we've had some, you don't want to call them boring draws, but teams where we've played against teams in our own league or sort of only one difference. So it was nice to sort of have a couple of leagues in between the opponents, and obviously we got through that one. They can always be a banana peel, those games. It's what the FA Cup's famous for. Sort of, we nearly had it, for 20 or so minutes before we equalised. It was, a little bit touch and go, but it's good to get through. And the FA Cup this year, they've really ramped up the prize money. I won't give away too many details so people don't know what we're definitely winning. But like as you said, if we beat Lincoln, we've already made a really good amount of money from that competition, and then obviously we're in the hat for the third round as well. So for you guys, you must see great potential, even just not even looking at the football side of it, but just looking purely at the finances and everything. It must be a great incentive to sort of do well in the competition when you see that sort of money rolling in just for winning games.
Yeah, it's not bad. I don't actually know for sure if the overall number increased. It may have, but what increased for sure was the percentages that went to clubs playing the early rounds.
The early rounds,
whether you won or lost.
Yeah.
So that was really nice because like a lot of these smaller clubs, like even in a loss, are going to get like an uptick, which 10 or 15 grand for one of those clubs is going to go a long way. So, and obviously we were lucky enough and fortunate enough to get one. And now the increase for us, even if we were to lose in this round, is better than it used to be. So that's positive for sure. But the real money then comes if you can get through another round and draw, a Tottenham or Arsenal or whoever away, and you get to split the gate receipts, and that whole game is, you could break down probabilities of how
January
many teams.
As well.
Yeah, true. It doesn't hurt. The timing would be nice. So we can be hopeful, but we also don't necessarily, like the Brighton one, we didn't get a huge amount when we went away to Brighton, but it was an uptick that was helpful for sure. And you pack it away and you have it in your arsenal for January, and for maybe the budget does increase that amount because we need to use it on player budget stuff in January to do our best to stay up and put a squad out there that gives us the best chance. So if we were to get a great draw, it's all just bonus gravy, whatever, and we're just going to be reinvesting it in the club like we always have, and go from there.
Yeah, again, it goes back to that whole. I think there's plenty of Crawley fans that would have been fancying to sort of get somebody else other than Lincoln in the draw, considering we'd only played him. I think when the draw was made, we'd only been about a week or so since we'd played him. So again, in that sense, a little bit underwhelming, but I suppose you have to take the positives from every situation and look at that as, well, hang on, we've already beaten them here. It's at our place again. So it is a opportunity to get to the third round, and it's not the worst thing when you already beat them, is it?
No, I think whether it's, I mean, truthfully, I don't think it actually matters if we're actually talking about like realism and like maths and probabilities. Like they're going to be saying, oh, remember when we went there last time and lost? Like revenge, we're going to get them. So you could argue both psychology sides of it. But what is true is that our players are good enough to get a win against that squad here at the Broadfield, and they're going to be confident in doing it again. And that's all you want, is for your guys to go out with a game plan that they believe in and are confident in and trust, and then just executing. And it comes down to, you know, how they perform that day relative to how Lincoln City performs. But I could see arguments both ways, so I don't try to pretend that it means much at the end of the day. We just got to go out and earn it.
Yeah, and we've touched a lot on the injuries so far, but we want to talk about January. It's not too far away now, so as we've already said, there's a chance to sort of bring some new guys in. How early does your preparation start for that? Is it as soon as the sort of window of the summer window slams shut? Is it sort of a little bit later? Do you have to sort of give a bit of time to see what injuries you're working with? Because that has to play a part, doesn't it? Because if we're going to be out, you know, without people like Flinty, Armando, I don't know how long their injuries are, but you're going to be wanting to sort of replace some of the bodies that we've lost, aren't we?
Definitely. So the truth is, it just carries over from the summer through August. You always have like target lists of certain position groups and types of players that you're looking at. So that doesn't change. What does change is then adjusting for, you know, what the data says we lack, combined with, you know, making sure you have bodies to fill those position groups. You know, maybe going into this season, we wouldn't have been thinking we would need to bring in another center back or defender. Now at this point, like, we're pretty slim there, and we might have injuries. And, you know, we didn't think we would need to have an emergency goalkeeper. That's our fourth goalkeeper that we've signed, you know, from Millwall, Truman. Do we need to look to get another, you know, second keeper to back up JoJo more permanently in January? Possibly. We wouldn't have planned on that back in August or September. So like, you have to adjust with what the season brings you. But it's a constant effort from our side, you know, Tobias, Rob, and his staff. You know, we met last week. We're meeting again a week from today to go through names and kind of strategies and process on how we want to assess the current squad combined with what's available and where we think we can add the most value for, you know, our budget and where we can, you know, make the biggest differences. And that's ultimately the goal at the end of the day.
I do want to go back to the FA Cup quickly. We haven't confirmed it yet, but there's going to be a ticket incentive for that game. I've got to give that a plug before I forget.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're going to go through with it. It's kind of unique, but it should be fun. And hopefully it gets people here to root the squad on. And then there is an incentive if you do come for something later. Yeah.
No, cool. We just want to put that plug in there before we forget. Is there anything else on the pitch that we haven't covered? I think we're all good. We've done manager changes. We've done players. I think it's all pretty much covered, unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, football related. I think we've touched on most of it. I don't know if there's anything office related on
Harry's
the ground.
left since
Harry is gone.
I think he was still hanging on by the end of the second podcast that we did. So yeah, obviously best wishes to him as well. Yeah. But we've got Lewis in, and I think a lot of people have picked up. I think naturally Crawley fans start looking around on LinkedIn and everything when everything happens, and they've seen that Lewis has sort of updated his profile. Is it?
Yeah, actually, I saw a text from someone that said he updated his link. I'm not even on LinkedIn. I never had a LinkedIn.
I'm not huge.
I never had a real job, honestly, which is weird. But he changed his title, which kind of, you know, covers some of what Harry was doing combined with what Claire was doing. And he's been a huge help and done a great job so far. So excited to have Lewis in. And if people caught on to that, that's essentially what happened. So they're spot on.
Yeah, no, and anything else off the pitch? I'm trying to think office related. We're hiring, aren't we? To be fair, we're hiring for
we are hiring. Just interviewed someone actually earlier today for a commercial position, trying to just take where we're at and the momentum we've had as a club, as a community the last year plus to, now drive more revenue and partnerships and sponsorships and community outreach here for the club. So yeah, we're hiring for that. We're also, I'm not sure if it's even official or not, but we're trying to find someone at least part-time to help put on more events because we have the space, whether it's the hospitality suite or Red's bar, to kind of monetize that a little bit more. And so we need someone that can organize and help put events on. We're going to do a holiday night out and go see Wicked. And you're the only one that I made a mandatory to go to because you said you didn't want to go see Wicked for the holiday night away for the office staff. So I'm putting you on the spot, and now I'm putting it in the podcast. So you have to go.
Oh, yeah.
But you can bring your girlfriend. It's fine.
She'll be delighted.
I'm not going to actually make you go if you don't want to go. Just
I'll have to check my diary.
Yeah. But I think that's everything. We're just trying to slowly but surely get to a spot where the club's in a better position than it was the year prior and the year prior to that, and just always trying to improve.
Yeah, and at the time of filming, we're a couple of days away now from the Bristol Rovers game. Got any early predictions, any early thoughts over that one?
I don't want to jinx it.
No, that's the problem. It's hard.
I'm the most logical person until it comes to superstitious jinxes, and I find ways. I will say, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go because I have a few meetings, but I think you guys are going to check out their training ground.
Yeah, we're going up
tomorrow, the day before. And then you're staying the night and then the match Saturday. But, we're trying to, another goal eventually is to try to have our own training facility or training. And they've built theirs, I think it was just 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's relatively new. I think that's why we're going up.
It's new. It's similar to what Ben kind of envisions we would do if we were to do it ourselves somewhere here locally in Crawley. And so I'm excited to see what you guys get from them. Take a bunch of pictures and video and we'll check it out. But I think that'll be, obviously we have the match Saturday, but that's something that long-term for our club is going to be useful. It's really nice of them to offer to let us in. I'll just say we win 2-1. Why not? Yeah. It should be positive. It doesn't actually impact the result.
Actually, I would say predict goal scorers, but that might give away what the lineup is. I don't even know if you know the lineup, but there's a few safe bets you could go with, I suppose. But
you know what's interesting? I don't mind saying this if it's I don't think it's
it will go out after the game probably, so it wouldn't even matter if your player doesn't start. Then
I was just going to say every manager and coach, I'm sure, has like their preferred methods. So this isn't a knock against Rob or against Scott. I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to start something. Scott was pretty adamant on like 24 hours before match, like that Friday, his squad was his squad. They left training knowing that was the squad and everyone could be ready for that. And like they'd send it in, and I knew what it was Friday, and it was not changing unless someone got sick or like missed the coach or whatever. I don't mind having the extra time personally to like think through things all day Friday, and you're watching film of the opposition and you're traveling to the opposition. You get there Saturday. So Rob waits a little longer before. So I don't actually know what the squad is on a Thursday, and they actually trained Wednesday and took Thursday off today anyways as a switch up this week. So I don't know currently anyways if I were to predict goal scorers. But I also don't think we would know Friday, where in the past, like I would know what the squad was for sure.
It's interesting. Friday, so. We had Harry Forster in earlier to do an activation with Brickborough for their sort of Christmas advert. Stay tuned for that, by the way. It's gonna be very good. A nice Home Alone twist, not to give too much away.
I didn't see it.
But we were talking with the lads from Brickborough. They're great. They've been here, and they were asking sort of Harry what the differences were between Scott and Rob, and obviously we've got a game coming up. So they said, you off tomorrow? Like, do you know if you're going to play? And he was talking us through the differences. He said, I think for some players it's great because you don't know. It means you're training your absolute hardest.
You have to be ready.
Because they do train. It's a new sort of thing that we've done for the last few seasons now, but where clubs will often now train on their way to games. So they'll leave slightly earlier the Friday. We'll train somewhere on the way. So tomorrow I think we're training at Swindon. Is that right?
I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's Swindon. So yeah, we're trained somewhere on the way. And if you're picked in that provisional squad, you know you've got a final chance to show the guys what you can do before that. The squad, I presume, is eventually picked Friday night and then announced to the players Saturday morning. So on the other side of that, he said it was nice having the security knowing that you could you were going to be playing or not. Yeah. So like if you weren't feeling right, you could sort of make your feelings known before. But
it's probably similar then to coaches who have a preference. Players probably have a preference.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on the methodology.
I don't think he had a particular he didn't particularly mind which way it was. He said it was like interesting, like sort of making that change, not knowing, because I think your friends and family ask you, are you going to be playing? Like, should I come and watch you? Should I go and get tickets? And you're like, oh, I don't know, because like maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Obviously, some players will know. Connell, for example, knows he's going to start because we legally have to start him, don't we? But
unless you want to play. Yeah.
No, yeah, I won't be signing myself up anytime soon. But yeah, no, it's an interesting dynamic. And well, hopefully your prediction comes right and we win 2-1.
I'll take 2-1.
Yeah, I'll take 2-1 any day. Yeah, any sort of win. But yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll be back sooner next time. I know we said that last time, but hopefully this time we will be back sooner than.
Yeah, definitely before like Christmas.
Yeah, we'll do a Christmas special.
Yeah, we'll do something.
Perfect. See you there.